welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be all about my planning system and how my planning system has really evolved over the last 4 years. So let's go ahead and jump into this video. So before we start, there is a question that has been asked, and that question was, how did I get started with planning? What led me to plan in the first place? Well, to be honest, I've always been into school supplies and paper and pens and just all the things, stationery, ever since I was a very little girl. The first journal / planner that I ever owned, I think I was about 10. And it was one that I got from CVS. It was a dark blue and glittery zip binder, and it had a doll, like a girl that was like poofy on the front of the cover. And I got that planner from CVS and I wrote in it. I obviously didn't have any plans at that age, but it was just the fact that I could write in it, I can journal in it. My cousin held a journal and I just wanted to be just like her. And so I begged my grandmother to purchase this zip binder for me with all of these blue and frilly little papers in it, and she did. I'm not even sure if the store CVS, those of you who are familiar with CVS pharmacy, I don't even know if they still cover or hold like planners and things like that. I know a very long time ago that they used to have like the Franklin Covey planners and stuff there also, but I have not been to a CVS pharmacy in such a long time. I don't even know if that even kind of thing exists in their stores anymore. So fast forward, high school, I've always gotten a yearly planner. Every year in high school, as well middle school, they would give us a yearly planner, but specifically more of high school is what I can remember. We would get a planner every single year, and every year I had great intentions of keeping track of my classes, especially because I used to be so bad at remembering which classes that I had next. I also used to be really bad at remembering where in the building my classes were, because my high school was very huge and there would be classes way on the left side of the building and then another classes way down corridors that I didn't even know existed in this school. So I used to keep a planner to keep track of all of this, of course, throughout my high school year from 9th grade all the way up into 12th. And then I took a break from planning. I stopped planning somewhere after high school. I took a break from planning for several years, and it wasn't until I moved out at the age of 20 that I really started to keep a planner again. By then, I was using it more, using more of your drugstore planners or your Walmart planners. I was using those to keep track of like my bills that I had to pay, my work schedules, things that I had to do for my apartment, things that I had to do for my car, because obviously it was just me maintaining all of this. And I grew up in a household where I didn't really have a lot of help towards these things. A lot of it was on me, so I had to foot the bill for a lot of stuff. I couldn't run to my mom and ask her to help me with, like these things, because they were also struggling. So I worked 2 jobs and I kept track of everything that I needed to do. A lot of the inspiration for doing that, though, stemmed from my mom, who also kept a notebook to keep track of her own bills and appointments and schedules and things like that. Although hers is nowhere near on the level of organized, she unfortunately knew where everything was, where I could look in her book and not know anything at all. So that's where the whole inspiration, the whole phase of being into planners really stemmed from for me. It started at a very, very young age, like just bringing my school supplies home, playing school in my bedroom, getting the notebooks and papers and pens and things like that. I always loved school supplies, stationery, which makes a lot of sense if you've been paying attention to my videos, especially those of you who have followed me for such a long time, that I love paper and I like the chunky paper and I like having lots of paper and pens and pencils and all the things, because those are things that make me happy. And I'm also a lover of art. I took art for 4 years in high school, along with ceramics and things like that, and sewing and home economics. And these are just all things that just stems my love for wanting to be organized and loving paper and stationery and all the things. So now that we know where the origin of my planning journey really started from, I wanted to kind of jump into one of the older bullet journals that I used while I was stationed in Germany. So my planning style is basically a list. So I have created my planning style based off of a to-do list. For years, I would hear a lot of people say that you can't plan based off of a to-do list. And I would always think that, okay, well, if I can't plan based off of a to-do list, then what should I be putting into my planner? So throughout my planning journey, really, of my adult life, I've been trying to figure out, how am I supposed to fill this planner when I want to write things in it? Someone's telling me that I can't write these things in it because that's not planning. And so it took me a while to kind of push back from that and kind of develop my own style of planning. So while I was in Germany, I was experimenting with a lot of things. I originally started my planning journey full throttle in notebooks. So I picked up a notebook. It didn't matter. It didn't have to be the most expensive thing. I didn't use the most expensive tools. I just used what was accessible to me and what was more affordable. And I just planned. I just wrote to-do lists, and then eventually I added on a bunch of other things. I talk about one of my favorite YouTubers, Mermaid Kitty, on YouTube, who hasn't posted in a while. But I mentioned that I was heavily inspired by her planning and her planning style because it was so raw and so authentic. And she was who I watched a lot when I was living in Germany. I would watch her videos and I would take some of her ideas and tweak them and make them my own, still giving credit to her, of course, but I would take some of those ideas and I would really look at her system and see how things are flowing and really working for her. Eventually, I branched out to more of the creative styled Monique Smith, who is Monique Life on YouTube. I watched a lot of her videos. I was really intrigued that, she was able to do everything in this one book. She had multiple sections. She had all the decorations. So I was heavily influenced by these two people that I had grown to watch. And I would go way back on their channels and I would watch all of their videos because these two people were more of my type of planning. I loved watching Mermaid Kitty for her functional aspect, and then I loved watching Monique Life for her careless, and just go with the flow type of planning, her decorative and still very functional, but just it works for her. And so I would look at that, and she really inspired me to just be carefree. The two of these people, I will say, really inspired me to just be carefree and to just do what feels right in my own planner and not listen to and not fall into the trend of needing to be like other people, needing my planning system to look like other people's. So I started developing my own style. I was taking a lot of the inspiration from watching them, and I was curating my own style of planning. So I took my simple to-do list and I turned it into something that has now transformed into a much more organized and structured way of planning. I am more of a functional planner. I don't want to give the impression that using stickers isn't functional. You can still use stickers. I'm just not more of a decorator when it comes to my planners. I really just like to see the information at hand for what it is. And then, you know, when I want to add those stickers, I can add those stickers. But I try to keep it very simple for myself because I get very distracted. And so that's why I just describe my own system as more of a functional, sticker-less type of planning. So this bullet journal I did back in 2020. I think I was in it for about 4 months. And I chose to show you this to give you a general idea of like where my system actually curated from and how it's formed over the last 4 years. Although this bullet journal is from 2021, it's been a while since, you know, we've walked, you know, down this form of my planning style. So back then I used to do a weekly like this, a very simple weekly. I've always had a weekly where I've had like a master to-do list. This is something that I carried over with me into rings. So when I was using ring planners, I would literally make a master to-do list for the week. Doing this really helped me eliminate having to write so many to-do lists, because I could make a to-do list like this and then I can take, you know, the bigger tasks and then break them down into smaller tasks for each day. So I really liked doing this. I also used to have a to buy because I was really bad at remembering things that we ran out of when we were in Germany. So every week I would have like a list of things that we probably needed to buy, along with my list of things that we needed to do for every week. And occasionally I would make meal planning. Now, meal planning, I feel like with today's planning and the way that people plan today, I feel like a lot of people make it more complicated than it needs to be, because there's inserts and, you know, everybody has their own specific way. But meal planning can be very simple. You just basically pick a couple of things that you want to eat and you just kind of map out, you know, how many times you're going to cook for the week, the ingredients you might need, and what you already have on hand. So a lot of times I would do stuff like this, like, what are we eating for the week? I would literally sit down with my husband and ask, what do you want to eat for the week? And we would write this down. Obviously, this is before having a child. So our meal planning was a little bit more simpler. It's still very simple, but now I'm a little bit more conscious about what we're eating and all of that stuff. So tracking really wasn't a part of my system. I do want to note that tracking was not really a big part of my system. It didn't become a big part of my system until about 2021, when I got pregnant and then I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes. I also had high blood pressure a little bit in the earlier parts. And yeah, so tracking was like never a big thing. I also wasn't taking a bunch of medications back then. So my planning style, the earlier parts of my journey are really very basic, and I stemmed it off of a to-do list. So this is like a weekly, and this is what my dailies used to look like, believe it or not. Because I didn't have a whole lot that was happening in my life, I used to split the page so that I would have 2 days on one page. So I would have general to-do list for the day. See, this to-do list is simple. It says laundry, dusting, cleaning kitchen, garbage pull, put laundry from last week up, laundry bedding / towels refill, soap in bathrooms, take something out for dinner. My top tasks were check pantry, expiration dates, bathroom deep clean, and mop / sweep floors. This is curated to basically be around my everyday duties. And if I'm being honest, a lot of what's in here is what I still write today in my planners. A lot of it is home-based because I am a stay-at-home mom. I'm a wife, and the house is my sanctuary. This is what I pride myself on, because I take really good care of the home. I like everything to be clean. Everything has a place. I want people to come in and feel comfortable and invited when they come to my home. I also take care of my son's needs, and I make sure that he has everything that he needs now. So a lot of times when you're looking into my planner and you're seeing the same kind of things written, it's because I have a set of tasks that I do for myself every single week, every single day, because I don't work a normal 9 to 5 job. Not that, not that you couldn't do this if you were working a 9 to 5 job, but I don't work a 9 to 5 job. So I give myself tasks, and I give myself something to do every day, so that my days aren't full of surfing through social media or doing something that's non-productive. I have done this so much in my life where I've written the same thing that it kind of has formed a internal memory of all the things that I need to do in a given day or in a given week. Of course, a lot of it changes. When I used to have bigger things happening in my life, I would always highlight. Back then, I had a color-coded system. I really have pushed away from having a color-coded system, because when I think about having color codes, I get a little stressed out, especially if I'm using a crap ton of markers. If I'm using like a set of 4, basically the same set of 4, then it's a little easier to follow. But sometimes I really just don't like having to keep up with that. But when I was using my bullet journals religiously, I used to have a color-coded system where red was super important, and I believe yellow was something that, it needs to get done. More like a cautionary thing. Like, hey, you need to do this. So yeah, my to-do list basically formed into my planning style. So I formed my simple little notepad to-do list into what is my planning system today. And back then I was breaking down my to-do list in sections like this, where I would have my master to-do list, the top things that I wanted to get done from that list, and then maybe a note or 2. I didn't have many notes back then, so I used to keep a very small space for notes, and that helps me a lot too. A lot of times, also, I printed. I used to print everything because I was told via watching videos and things like that, speaking to myself, that you have to print in your planners. And I didn't really see people using cursive and anything like that. And I am not big on printing. I don't really care for printing. I find my printing to be a little sloppy. So it killed me to have to print everything. It wasn't until I think about year 2021 is when I got very comfortable with just using general print, or not print, using general cursive, because that's what I was most best at, and that's what felt natural, is to just write in cursive. So I wrote in cursive. But yeah, looking at this, it brings back memories to how I was sitting and taking all of the video notes that I was watching and really listening to. And I still used stickers, but they were very minimal. I was sent a couple of packages from some of you while I was stationed in Germany, and you probably will never know how grateful I was to receive those, because having those things sent to me while I was stationed in Germany really helped me play around with planning a lot. I was sent inserts and stickers and all kinds of things, and it really helped to transform my planning style, because I was so closed to what planning really was and all the different styles of planning and what's available with planning. And I didn't know that there was a wide range of things out there. I had only known what I've known for several years. And so it was a breath of fresh air, I'll say, to just see like the different things that are available in the planning community. But like I said, back then I was doing a simple daily spread like this where I had 2 days on a page and breaking them down into basic to-do lists. If you've noticed, if you've paid attention to my planning throughout the years, I still use these very basic little, I called them back then my form of bullet journaling, where I had a check mark for a completed task, a dot for anything that was in progress, arrow for things that I wanted to move to the following day. And if I didn't do it at all that day, I X'd it out and then put an arrow there for something that I'm not doing today, but I'm going to do it on another day, not specified which day that is. So I had my version of the bullet journal symbols, and yeah, that's what I used. I used to use stickers in a different way. I still use them in the very same way that I use them today. If you pay attention to a lot of the little icon stickers, I still very much so use stickers in that same fashion. It's just that back then when I was, planning and when I was really curating my system to be what it is today, I was using things that nobody else was using, really, because I couldn't afford, like cloth and paper or and not to say that I can afford these things today. I can't. It's just that I make not budget sacrifices. What's the word I'm looking for? I make sacrifices for certain things. So maybe I was going to spend money on something this month, planning related, and I sacrificed getting that to get something else. I set myself on a budget, on a limit for how much I'm allowed to spend on planning stuff. And I try to spend that money that I've allotted for myself wisely. So sometimes I might skip out on something that I might have wanted for a really long time to get something else. It's just the way that I've kind of done things for myself when it comes to things that I want. But I still use stickers like this. It's just that I've gone to my aesthetic now is more of a neutral. I've kind of toned down on a lot of the colors and stuff. I still like colors, but I've toned down a lot more because I just like to see the writing more than anything. I just like to see the information that is being written. So yeah, sometimes when I didn't have or I didn't do tasks at all, I would just cross them completely out. And that's something that I still do today, believe it or not. Especially like if you guys been paying attention to my planning style and all of that stuff, these are things that I still do today. So my planning is not, it's not copying anyone else's. It's not that I've become like this aesthetic style planner or nothing like that. It's just that I've cleaned up my own planning to look a little bit more appealing to myself, one, but also so that I can read it, and so that if in fact someone else needs to be able to look in it, they can read it. Like my husband, for instance, like if he needed to look into my planner for whatever reason, he can read it. So I've just cleaned it up a little bit so that it is legible, and also just more adult, because I am 31 now, and I just felt like I wanted something that screamed a little bit more grown up. I felt like when I was doing this, it made me feel like I was back in high school, because my high school planners looked a lot like this. So yeah, so I did this style of planning for a while. Sometimes I look at this and I think to myself, like, I was so functional with this, the way that I was planning like this. But I look at this today and I'm just like, I wouldn't dare do half of these things today because it would drive me nuts. And you have to be okay with allowing yourself to scribble on a page, make mistakes, smudge some pen, write in a different color, do plans in a different color. A lot of times when I was doing this, though, it was things that I wanted to stand out more. So when I still have this way about my system today, But a lot of times when I wanted things to really stand out, for say, I would always write them in different colors. When things were important to me, I would highlight them in red. So I still very much so plan in this same exact fashion. It's just a lot cleaner than what it looks like on this paper. So yeah, this was my bullet journal, which let me know that I could definitely do a to-do list and section it out and make it really functional and really work for me. Because like I said, for years, I would watch the YouTube videos, the older videos, where people would say a to-do list is not really planning. How are you planning? How are you accomplishing goals and tasks if you're just writing a basic to-do list? And for me, I would always think like, well, isn't planning basically a to-do list in the first place? Because you have to write down the things that you need to do in a given day or in a given week, and you're sectioning them out. I know there is a system for all of this, but sometimes, doing those kinds of ways of planning doesn't really work for everyone, and it didn't work for me. So I stuck to what really resonated with me, and I stuck to writing a basic to-do list and then breaking it down into sections. And that's how I've been able to form my own planning system, where I have these designated to-do lists for designated days, and I break them down between sections. And now that I have a son, and now that I'm a little bit older, I was 26. I was 26 when we were living in Germany. I had turned 27. So I was still in my, late 20s, and I was still kind of, new to the wife life. And now I'm a little older, not much older, but I'm a little older, and I have a child now. And so now I break down things between appointments and routines. See, these are things that I didn't develop until maybe a year and a half ago. So there's that. I did get into tracking during this era of my planning journey. So I was taking a prenatal, and I was really tracking, this is when my pregnancy journey really started. It's sad and happy at the same time to go through this and to explain how my planning system really is, because during this phase of life, again, still married, I was trying to get pregnant, and I had eventually gotten pregnant with baby number 1 that I eventually miscarried. And so I was taking prenatals, and I was tracking a lot of my health related things. So I was tracking how much sleep I was getting. I was tracking, when I took naps, when I was awake, and all of that stuff. So I got this whole sleep tracking idea from 2 people. One, Mermaid Kitty 85, she does a different form of sleep tracking, but another person that hasn't posted in quite a long time, the Mrs. Mom on YouTube, I hope I'm saying her name right, but she had a sheet, because she was using ring planners. She had a sheet that basically looked similar to this, and I was like, that is very interesting. And so I saw it. Obviously, I don't have access to a printer. I didn't have a printer then. So I drew it out. And I tried it for the first time, and I really enjoyed seeing this. And so this is when all of the tracking really came into fruition for me. It's because I was seeing how beneficial it was to really keep track of when I took something, when I didn't take something, how many hours of sleep I was getting. So this was explaining a lot of the symptoms that I might have been having in my health journey. So doing this every month really helped for me. I did this, I want to say about, I think last year I did a little bit of this where I was brainstorming. I was on Pinterest, and I was brainstorming some ideas for, like how to do reflections and how to do the timetables. So basically, I was doing things like little things, little time. And for 5 minutes, you would write out a clock, you would draw out a clock, and you would write all the tasks that you could basically accomplish within that given time. So in 5 minutes, you can check tasks. You can prep your backpack or your purse if you're going to be leaving, or your planner bag or whatever. You can post on IG. So if you want to make a post, you can do that, and you can check emails. You can do all of this in 5 minutes. So just giving you a general idea of how this works. You just write a time in, and then you write down the task in which you can get done in that time. And then you set a timer so that you're not burning yourself out. You're still accomplishing things throughout the day, but you're giving yourself a limit. So if surfing social media for 10 minutes of your day is something that you want to do, you can do that. Just set a timer, and then you can quickly surf your Facebook, your YouTube, your Instagram, your I don't use Twitter, but you can surf all of that. And then see, like all the things that you might want to do or could have done in that time frame by just writing them down and then doing that task by setting a timer. So basically, I was doing a lot of this. I was doing a lot of reflections and stuff. This is something that I kind of pulled away from in my planning journey because I really wasn't interested into keeping up with this. I definitely think this is something that I probably should bring back in because I've been kind of conflicted in my planning journey as of now, whereas what I have is working. I was using the Plum Planner inserts very heavily, and they worked for my life because I just felt like they just fit the mom role. I felt like it was just curated for my life in a sense. And so the Happy Planner is something that is taking some time to get used to. But like I mentioned, I was sent some inserts, so I'm going to be trying those out for next month. But doing these reflections definitely do help to see where your mindset is on planning. And I think this also helps with FOMO, is to do a reflection like this, because when you're feeling unhappy in your planner, you need to write down why you're feeling unhappy and discouraged, what's working for you in that time frame, what's not working, and is there room for improvement? Is there something that you just need to improve to make this system work? Or if there are any goals for the following month that you would like to accomplish. So these are things that I was writing a lot. At some point in time, I got into the sticker phase. So this is where the sticker phase really takes off. And I'm going to try to rush through this because a lot of what's in here is basically similar to how I'm planning today. So again, I really like the sleep tracker from the previous month of this bullet journal. So I did it for just about every month that I was in it. And I was tipping things in. I had gotten some Happy Mail, and I got one of these. I wasn't using Discbound, and I didn't know anything about Discbound really. And I was sent a bunch of Happy Planner stuff from a lovely lady who also was one of the ladies who sent me a package while I was in Germany. She sent me a lot of inserts and things like this. So I was trying them out, and I liked, obviously it doesn't go with the aesthetic, but this was the kind of thing that I was into back then, was just using things that just made sense rather than how it looked. My weeklies still stay the same. And then again, this is where I really start to pick up tracking. So I was using tracking stickers to indicate when I was doing something. So I was still tracking using a prenatal. And then I was tracking, at this time I was doing school. So I was tracking my school dates, like when I was doing school. And then I think I had in there when I went to surgery, or when I had surgery. Sometimes I was using these trackers to write out workouts. So like I was doing Zumba, and then I did the run club. So I was doing a lot of different kinds of tracking physical activity tracking. And of course, there are different ways that you can do physical activity tracking, but this was just my form of how I was doing it. So I was using like a Sharpie, because you have to use like something like a Sharpie or a regular ballpoint pen to write on a Sweet Kawaii stickers. But I was literally writing down I was doing insanity at this time of my life. And so I was writing down the week of the workouts that I was doing. So when I had those fit tests and things like that. At some point, I started to try out a day on one page. Obviously, this didn't stick too long in this bullet journal because I didn't really have a whole lot to begin with, like I've mentioned. And so doing this didn't really work for me. And this is where I come in and say that you have to make your planners kind of work for you. So when things don't feel right, you have to kind of step away from those and allow yourself to make those necessary changes. So I tried this where I was doing a schedule, and then I still had my to-do list. I had notes and then things for tomorrow. So I really didn't like this format because it doesn't really work well with my lifestyle. Maybe now that I'm a mom, that this kind of layout would work for me. But when I was just me and my husband, it didn't really work that well to have a schedule because I didn't have many things going on. During this phase of my life, I was going to a lot of appointments to help me get pregnant. I think this was for I was going after my third pregnancy. So my third pregnancy is my miracle baby, which is the baby that I have now. So yeah, I was doing a lot of physical activity. I was taking a lot of things to help my health, and I was doing a lot of medical visits and surgeries, necessary surgeries and things like that. So I really got into tracking into this era of my planning, which is why you see that I track today, but my tracking isn't strict to the degree where I have trackers for every single month for specific things. So this is just a brief, rundown of what my system really is. It really is just a split to-do list that is set into categories. And it's just running to-do list in a different way. That's the best way. That's the only way that I can think of how to explain it. I stuck with what worked for me for several years. As far as note taking, because all of this is the same and stuff. But as far as note taking goes, I like to have a lot of note paper, but I never have a crap ton of notes, because what ends up happening is I write notes and then I delete, or not delete because that would be for digital, right? I throw away notes. So I haven't been in this book in such a long time, so I don't know if there's any sensitive information in these note pages. I'm pretty sure that there are, but I'm going to show you what I can show you. So a lot of times I was writing grocery list. So at the time we were getting our groceries from a German grocer. We would put in our order of things that we wanted, and then I would send the order to him, and he would bring the orders to us within the week that he was out doing his runs. So I was doing a lot of grocery lists for that in there. I was also doing some meal plans. I also had some ideas that could be fun, like for date nights and movies for date nights, and product review notes. Because I was sent some products to review. I had reviewed the Parku gel pens. And then these were some YouTube projects that I was kind of mapping out, some projects in review, some how to do or how to make projects. These are college notes, more grocery list, and follow-up phone calls. So what I like to keep in my planners, generally speaking, is when I get a phone call, I like to put the person's name, and I also like to write the time in which the call was. And then I like to take bits and pieces of that call and put them into notes. I've gotten that from my mom, who does that a lot, because if you ever need to go back and follow up with someone, or you had a dispute or disagreement with that person and you need to, report or to speak to a supervisor of that person, you need to know who you spoke to. You need to know who you spoke to, what the call was in regards to, or what the call was about, or whatever. And yeah, you need to have that information written down. I get a lot of phone calls most of the time, and sometimes I can't recall what we spoke about, because we might have been speaking about something, previous, and then we go into speaking about something else. So I like to take little snippets of the reason of the call, so that way if there's something that I need to do on my end, something that I need to follow up with, then I can go back and say, okay, well, I spoke to Courtney at 11:30 or 11:13 a.m. today, and it was in regards for something about school, or this particular phone call was in regards to my saline ultrasound that I had, which was on June 5th through June 10th of this particular year. And then I have here what the reason of the call was for, the follow-up, so I had an appointment, and so on. So super helpful that if you are someone who is on the phone, to just jot down who you're speaking with and what the call was about and the time in which the call was. Because I will tell you, if you get calls like often from a specific place, like a doctor's office or something, it's always good to be able to like go back, and especially when you have to explain like why you're calling, in regards to why you're calling about something, that you have all of that information there, so you can go back and follow up with if you're following up with a different person, you can tell them who you originally spoke to, so that everyone is on the same page. So yeah, you guys, this is my system, really. This is my entire planning system. So looking at this, this is where my planning system really took this is where it really took off, rather. And then this is what it has formed into today. I'm going to zoom you guys out so you can see. Okay. So, of course, I've used many different things throughout my planning journey. I've used personal rings. I've used A5 rings. I've used bullet journals. I've used Alexis Geostra's planner, which is the Charmed Life planner, which she actually has a really good planner. I think it's more suited for... I'm just looking at something. I think it's more suited though for like entrepreneurs, but she has a really good planner that you can use and things like that. But this is what my planning system is today. So looking at my old planner, when you look at my current to date planner, it is essentially the same way of planning today. I still have my monthly. I still do my monthlies in a very different color coded way. I still have things that I like to add into my planners, like project goals and to do pages. I still keep a month instead of a weekly running to-do list. I now have two. So now I have a monthly running to-do list. And I still keep YouTube notes and projects that I'm working on, projects that I would like to get worked on. And then my current week, I have a running to-do list where I keep all of my running tasks for this specific week. And then I break those running tasks down into specific days. Each day is different. I add pages in for general notes. I have project pages now to help me break down projects that I've written down further. And I still track meals. I still do a short form of meal planning here. I still use icon stickers to indicate, like appointments and big events. I highlight things now. It's just not as colorful anymore, but I still highlight and use stickers to indicate things. And I still have some form of tracking going on in my life, although I'm not doing sleep tracking at the moment, but I still have some form of tracking. On this tracker, I'm tracking my water intake, my medications, whether or not I'm working on the trip home, because we're leaving for 6 months, whether or not I check my blood pressure, spent money, pulled the trash, and washed the dishes. These are just general house tasks and some personal tasks. And then here, this week is different. I'm tracking my blood pressure because I was hypertensive earlier this week. I was reading 148/95, and that's really bad. So I have been working on my system for many years, and I've gotten to a point where I know what I like, I know what I need, I know what works for me. And so I know that a to-do list works for me. I know how to break my to-do list down to be more functional for me. And so I have really worked really hard to get my planning system to this point. And that's also why I'm able to bounce from planner to planner, is because I know how I'm going to use it. I know what I'm going to put in it. I don't really stray too far from what I know and what really works for me. I might try out different things. I might try out different inserts, but at the end of the day, I still do the very same exact thing, which is why I am able to bounce from book to book or planner to planner, regardless of the different layout that it is. I still keep a lot of the same sections. I have all the months here. I have a note section, and I have a daily section. It's just that now I focus more on what am I going to be using the most. So I know that I don't need a dated daily all the time, but I like to keep, like the little pocket dailies, because I like to make to-do lists, running lists. I know that I'm definitely going to need a weekly, but I know that I need a place to break down weekly tasks, major weekly tasks, a place to write important notes, a place to take notes rather. I just know now what my system is, and so I'm able to do all of these different things and add all of these different things. And when something doesn't work, I just remove it completely from the system. So this, I'm so sorry, they're outside doing lawn work, but this primarily is my entire planning system explained. I don't want to go too in depth about this because I've already showed you guys. I've already basically shared what's in here and all the things and how I'm using everything. So I'm not going to bore you with showing that stuff again, but I wanted to bring light or shed light to what my planning system really consists of and the type of things that I'm really writing in my planning system. It's for me because I am the stay-at-home mom and the wife. It's home related, it's stuff about my husband, it's stuff about my son, it's stuff about myself, it's YouTube projects that I want to get out for you guys, it's ideas about Instagram posts that I want to make, it's things like that. It's just basic, simple, everyday things that I break down into categories, and everything has a category between home, work, my kid, wellness. Everything has its own little space. So hopefully you guys got some inspiration from that, going down memory lane into one of my most notorious and most functional bullet journals of my planning life. So hopefully you guys gained some inspiration from that. I know this is such a long video, but hopefully you watched it all the way to the end and it was very inspiring for you. I thank you guys so much for taking any time out of your day, whether you watch for 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or you skip through, you watch some bit of it. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. So I thank you for that. And yeah, I just thank you guys so much anyway for just spending time with me, because I know it takes time to watch these videos, these long ones. So thank you guys so much once again, and I will see you very soon in my next one. Bye guys.